of the committees to submit the exact same wording. This was a really hard job. Having all the writing committees do the same wording was really important because that made it really hard for the board to steamroll over the committees, right? And they really were mad about it, and they fought for months about it. The board tried hard as they could to get strengths and weaknesses back in there, because if strengths and weaknesses kind of language was back in there, then they could go and beat up on the publishers to put the weakening, to weaken evolution again. There was a whole thesaurus of new phrases that they tried very hard to get into the language, and unfortunately they failed. So, when they, honest to God, working with the Texas Board of Education is in itself an experience. So the final amended 3A that they came up with, which is what we ended up with, some of strengths and weaknesses, is in all fields of science, analyze, evaluate, and critique scientific explanations by using empirical evidence, logical reasoning, and experimental and observational testing, including, it didn't stop there, okay, including examining all sides of scientific evidence of those scientific explanations so as to encourage critical thinking by the student. I swear. You can discern the amount of political influence on a standard by the number of prepositional phrases. So, the other place where we have problems with is legislation, especially something called Academic Freedom Acts. Last year, we had Academic Freedom Act legislation, or anti-evolution legislation, submitted in a large number of states. It's only January, so we're just getting started this year. So I'll give a new table. We're getting short of time. I have lots more to tell you, but I was trying to lop out more and more states. There are lots of, let me just quickly summarize. Academic freedom legislation is a very interesting thing. The academic freedom legislation that's cropping up all over the country is very tricky because it avoids mentioning anything about religion. It avoids mentioning creationism or anything like religion at all, because it avoids the establishment clause. It also avoids, it also stresses free speech. It talks about the academic freedom of teachers to bring in alternative views. That makes it very popular with the public. Because who's it? Raise your hand if you're against academic freedom. Nobody's against academic. Everybody likes academic freedom. I am for academic freedom, right? It also tends to be protective of teachers. It says a teacher who brings in alternative theories cannot be disciplined by the district. Ooh, that's scary. Think about that a little bit. You want your teachers bringing in any old junk into the curriculum? You might not want to do that. It's sort of a teacher license to break the law, so to speak. They also tend to be permissive bills. We permit teachers to do this rather than require them to do it. From a legal standpoint, that's very interesting. The Dover policy was challengeable in the sense because the Dover policy said, you will do X, Y, Z. These permissive bills are you can do X, Y, Z, which means that in order to challenge the bill, most judges will say, well, it may cause harm, but we don't know for sure, so go and find me a case. That means you have to do what lawyers call an as-applied challenge. You have to actually go out there, find a teacher who's stepping over the line, find somebody in the class who's got standing to sue and who's willing to sue, which is not always easy to find, especially in small towns where there's a lot of social pressure. The citizens of Dover were very brave. They put up with an awful lot to be plaintiffs in this case. And so you really raise the bar for bringing a lawsuit against these kinds of cases. So it's a very clever kind of strategy. They're much tougher to take. And another interesting things about these academic freedom acts is they tend to embed evolution with a number of other things like global climate change and cloning and all kinds of this sort of laundry list of topics which the religious right is usually also excited about. So, and usually we think the reason for that is because an earlier case, the Eberson case, in fact, argued that singling out evolution from all other topics is in itself evidence that, that there's a religious purpose behind what you're doing. So by embedding evolution with global climate change and stem cells, cloning and stuff like that, they're perhaps trying to avoid all that. So, if you want to know more about this topic, please visit our website. You can sign up for a Friday email, free email, which gives you information on what's going on that week. It's very informative, done by my colleague Glenn Branch. She really does an excellent job. If you go to the news button here, you'll be taken to this page, and there's all kinds of depressing things going on. You can sort by state, or you can sort by year, and we have a lot of information on our site. You can also join. It's a membership organization. We'd be delighted to have you. And if you didn't get that website, it's ncsc.com. Glenn Branch is the Deputy Director of NCSC. Louise Mead is our Education Outreach Director. Robert Lund is our Communications Director. Peter Hess is our Faith Outreach Director. And our Flare-Ups Wranglers are Josh Rosenau, Steve Newton, and Eric Mickle. These are the staff members who try to help the people on the ground who are struggling with these issues at the local or state legislative level. And me, of course, I'm there to help as well. So, and of course, like all, oops, hello, where'd that come from? That's there. This is the one I was looking for. We are, of course, naturally on Facebook, so come here. Thanks so much for, I always love coming to Colorado. I want to come to Colorado every chance I get. Thanks for inviting me.
Hello, can you hear me? We're going to go ahead and do some question and answer right now. So I'll pass this around. I'm going to give it to Krista. She'll pass it around. So just raise your hand if you have a question for Eugenie, and she will try to get to it. With so many people, it's going to be kind of hard to get everybody's question. So also, this isn't I want to hear your dissertation for 30 minutes about what you believe. Keep it as a question. We'll give you like 20 seconds. Stay on topic, things like that. All right? Thanks.
Okay, I have a quick question. If God created everything in the universe, everything like religion teaches everything in the universe, then I have a question. Who created God?
Well, that's a question for religious people to answer.
I've recently been reading a lot of the theories of abiogenesis. Do you have any suggestions maybe for good readings about that? Like origin of life theories, basically?
There's a lot of active research on the origin of life. There's a number of active theories. It is true that there's not a consensus among scientists about a full sequence going from inorganic chemicals to organic chemicals to on the way to something that is replicating, to something that is replicating that's within a membrane, to something that's within a membrane that can replicate, etc. We've got a bunch of little pieces, but not the whole sequence. A lot of interesting work, but not a whole sequence yet. That said, we know more now than we did before. Creationists, interestingly enough, seem to invest a great deal in origin of life and seem to unnecessarily tie it to evolution. I've never quite understood why, because evolution is common ancestry, and you can't have evolution until you have something that can evolve. And so evolution is pretty much independent of a natural origin of life. If we never get agreement upon a sequence of resulting in a replicating structure, it will make no difference to whether dinosaurs and birds shared a common ancestor. or humans and apes had a common ancestor. It's irrelevant.